I realized, oh, okay, guess what? I need a lot of work. The person who needs a lot of work is me, yes. And especially so when he started hitting the terrible twos. He started to become hysterical almost every other day. There was a meltdown when he was about 20 months old. And when he was like that, and I was losing myself in this whole new phase of parenting, suddenly that it hit me, suddenly I had that aha moment that, oh my goodness, he is my mirror. He is a total reflection of me. Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Experimental Parent with me, Jasmine. On this episode, I wanted to talk about how I lost and found myself in parenting. So before becoming a parent, I had a lot of visions and ideals about what kind of mother I will be and what my family life would be like. I imagined I will have 5 kids and they'll all be running about and they'll be so happy, and I'll be so happy mothering them. And when it really happened to me, I realized how unprepared I was, how helpless I felt. And the day I had my baby, my first baby, was the loneliest day of my life. And when I say lonely, I don't mean that there was nobody around, my husband wasn't there, that I didn't have anybody to care about me. Not at all. I had a wonderful support system. I had so many people who showered so much love and concern for me and the baby and our new family. There was no shortage of that for me. But when I said lonely, I am referring to it in the context of how uncharted this path is, how lost I felt in this whole new chapter, this whole new wisdom that is called parenting. And I think a lot of mothers who are listening now, or watching this now, and you have just become a new mommy. Maybe you've just had a new baby a couple of days ago, a couple of weeks ago, or even a couple of months ago. I think you can really relate to what I'm talking about. This loneliness, this feeling of this is so new to you. There is no manual that you can refer back to. It's so uncharted, and there is no way, no other way for you to get the hang of it other than to go through it, to let it run its course. And that's why I felt lonely, and I think I only learned to deal with it as the days went by, the months went by, and I made peace with the fact that, okay, this isn't completely natural to me, and it's not quite like how I imagined it to be. So I realized 3 things. The first thing was that when I am exploding back at him, when I am just telling him what he's supposed to do, and all as a result of how uncontrolled, how out of control I was, I am bad energy. So first of all, I am bad energy when I behave like that. The second realization that I had was that calm breeds calm. And this sounds very cliche, yes, but it's very true that when I share with him my calm energy, eventually, not immediately, but eventually, he starts to calm down. And he's learning every single moment, he is learning from me. The third realization was that he is my mirror. So sometimes we just say things that we are not very, it just slips out of our mouth because it's just so natural the way we talk. And the next moment, it could be just a few minutes later, it could just be weeks later. My son just comes back and he says in the exact same tone, the same circumstances. Yes, he knows exactly when to use those phrases. And that's the scariest and most amazing thing about it. He repeats it exactly. So that's when we realize, oh gosh, he is our mirror. So we have to be extremely mindful every moment that we are with him. And so along the way, the parenting literature that I have been reading just rings true to that realization I had after discovering what kind of parent I really want to be to my children. In fact, most recently when I was listening to the podcast of Dr. Shefali Tsabary, she is amazing. And she was also on Oprah's podcast, Super Soul, and she shared many insightful things about parenting. She's also the author of The Conscious Parent. So when I was listening to her, It's that, okay, I get it now. It's that aha moment. And she said something really salient, and that was, I'm not just mothering my child, I also need to learn to mother myself and all my unmet needs, you know? A lot of times we just want to go in to fix things and we're not realizing that we haven't quite got the hang of ourselves yet before we go into teaching our children. And she also said that it's called parenting, you know, but this whole thing is called parenting because it calls us to examine ourselves as parents and not just what we can do to our children, you know, what we should do to make them the versions that we wish we were, or versions of what we deem as the best version of people, right? That's why it's called parenting, because otherwise it'd be called childing. So that really was like a moment for me to internalize that. And when I reflected back on how I was a reflective energy to my children, I realized that it's my children who tamed me. Yeah, so when I say that I lost myself in parenting, it was because there was no manual. I was helpless. I didn't know where to look to. My child was different from all the types of children that they were naming on the internet. So I had no reference point. That's where I felt so alone, so helpless, that I didn't know how to go about it. It didn't just come naturally. It wasn't just something that like a memory recall kind of situation for me. Not at all. And that's how I lost myself. But I found myself because these literature and also the OJT helped me to realize that the way to go was by navigating my emotions at that point in time and to help my children through those moments where they also have those big feelings and they don't know how to get out of them. So practicing emotional intelligence was that compass for me to help me to navigate my own emotions and also that of my children. So we're going into every conversation, every interaction respectfully, mindfully. And it's funny, I was just talking to my husband about this, and that even he couldn't change me. You know, I was saying that you didn't change me. It was the children who helped me, who are helping me become a better version of myself. So an entire lifetime, my friends, my family, they can vouch for it. I am the explosive child in the family. I always have all these big feelings. I always want to express them. And there wasn't quite a way that I learned how to manage my emotions properly. And even as I grew up and I went to the workforce, I went into my relationships, my marriage, these things were not big enough impetus for me to fundamentally work on how to change myself, as in my temperament, as in how I deal with the amygdala hijack that I get, you know, those moments where I am so compelled to just react rather than respond. Nothing quite like it. But when I had my children and my firstborn being an exact version of me, temperament wise, he tamed me. You know, he was that motivator that made me realize, okay, I'm the one that needs some work. I need a lot of work. And I had better look more seriously into my emotional intelligence before I am going to teach him how to navigate around his emotions. So it got to a point where I can be really angry about something and no other circumstance would I stand for that, and I would have just exploded. But when it came to my children, I actually learned to, okay, stop there. Let's stop this yelling game. It's going nowhere. I'm going to find a better way to curb the situation, to come from a point of view of what is it I'm feeling, what is it I'm thinking at that point in time, and how it is influencing my actions and also the energy that I am feeding to my child. My children are helping me to cultivate patience, to cultivate empathy, to cultivate emotional intelligence when I interact with them. So in mellowing my temperament, I am also a lot more patient with other people. The ones that I care about, that I love, I would also show them the same level of care and empathy and patience that I show my children. And the other reason I think is that being a parent has shifted my brain makeup to make me do things or act for more than just myself, to always put somebody else or some other people before myself. And it's quite a profound thing. I think, maybe a lot of parents, they probably share this kind of thoughts with friends who have not yet been parents, or friends who don't wish to become parents, and these people probably find it pretty difficult to relate to sometimes, because after all, you're giving up a lot of yourself for somebody else, and it's not always easy to say I'm very willing to do that, voluntarily for somebody else. And I totally get that. But I think why it's a positive shift for me is because it has brought a lot more wholeness to my life. It has, at the end of all of that mayhem, it still brings some warmth, joy, and fulfillment in living for more than just myself. Coming back to a home that is filled with noise and filled with toys everywhere, no doubt, but also that completeness of just having so much more love to give. So if you were to ask me if I would do it again now, knowing all of the pain, knowing all of the sacrifices that I have to make and all the time I have to give up for myself to be a parent, would I do it again? My answer is yes, because, and I say this truthfully, yes, and I've really thought about this question many times over. I say yes because the version of me now and all that multiplying love and joy that we enjoy because we've learned to raise our children and become better versions of ourselves in the process is something that is so valuable, and something that I don't think any other kind of experience can bring me to. The thing with family life is that there is a change at every turn, and it's never the same every day, but that love, that joy, that warmth just continues to grow. And more importantly, that learning and that self-improvement, that self-betterment also continues to grow. So I came across this very interesting experiment that they did on mother rats and baby rats. And so what this experiment shows is the amount of nurturing that a mother rat provides to her pup, her baby rat, plays a part in how that baby eventually responds to stress as they grow up later in life. So the pups of nurturing mothers who nurture their pups a lot, as they grew up, they actually became less sensitive to stress because their brains developed more cortisol receptors. And as you may already know, cortisol is a stress hormone, right? So more cortisol receptors means that it sticks to cortisol more, and as a result, it dampens the stress response. On the other hand, pups of negligent mothers have an opposite effect. So they became more sensitive to stress as they grew up. So all these changes that the mother rat's actions, her amount of nurturing has on the baby rat, is what they call epigenetic changes. And it's interesting, it means that epigenetic changes are changes that have the ability to affect the genes which are expressed without directly changing the genetic code. So can you believe that our behavior, our actions also have the ability to alter DNA, so to speak? And another interesting finding from this experiment was that the epigenetic changes of one mother rat actually passed down to generations of mother rats after her. So it's actually something that can be passed on to generations, and it's a very powerful thing when you think of it, that it can alter DNA. It has the ability to change our children's actions in future. So you can't just say that, oh yeah, he's just born temperamental, there's nothing I can do about it, because we have the ability to stand by our children and co-regulate with them. And as we're teaching them how to co-regulate, as we're teaching them the ways of dealing with a given situation, they are forming new patterns in their brain. And as they form those new patterns, their brains are going to become more and more efficient at following this pattern. As they grow up, it's going to become more muscle memory, it's going to become more and more autopilot. So the question is, what kind of patterns do we want to nurture in our children's brains? Thanks for tuning in to The Experimental Parent. Remember, we are all in this together. So if you have a story, topic suggestion, or feedback you'd like to share, we'd love to hear from you. You can DM me on the show's Instagram, The Experimental Parent, or leave a comment here. If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to like or subscribe so you never miss out on future episodes. Your support means the world to us. So let us know, how was your experiment today?